Hello and welcome to this Qt World Summit talk. My name is Brook. I'm a senior software engineer and UX designer for the Qt company, working on Qt Design Studio, and today I'm going to show you how you can make Qt quick controls in Design Studio directly from your Figma design file. And to do this, we've created a set of templates in Figma that you can redesign, and when you import them into Qt Design Studio via Qt Bridge for Figma, we will automatically generate working quick controls directly from the design in your templates. So let's take a closer look at this, and we can start by taking a look at the simplest of our templates, and that's the button. These templates comprise of mainly two parts: a component that is used in your design and which we share later via the Figma library, and the template itself, which is a Figma variant set with all of the states that the template knows about, by which I mean the when conditions that will be generated automatically into the control when you import it into Qt Design Studio. And here on the left, in the navigator in Figma, you can see the states that are inside this variant set. Each of these subcomponents or variant states inside the main Figma design template have an associated when condition inside Qt Design Studio. Now, if you don't need to use one of these states, what you should do is just leave the design the same as the idle state, and that way, once you have your control, you won't see any states that you don't want as part of your design. You can, of course, add new states to your own templates, but there won't be an associated when condition with that state, and you'll have to program that yourself manually in Qt Design Studio afterwards. And the main idea behind these templates is now you can design the appearance of the button in each of these states and simply import that into Design Studio to generate a working control. All of these controls also use constraints, so they can be used at multiple sizes and scales in the final design. The templates themselves also contain a Figma prototype of each control, which allows you to test the design of your control and also the constraints of that control already in Figma before you import it into Design Studio, and we can also use these in Design Studio to check the accuracy of our exports later on. For example, here is that button demo imported into Qt Design Studio, which we can now run directly in the live preview of Design Studio to test the design of our control, the logic and the when conditions, along with the constraints that have been generated into QML anchors, and show the responsive design of each button. With this, we can test the accuracy of the import and export process from Figma to Qt Design Studio. For the more complicated controls, you will see that each of these templates actually becomes several subcomponents that are composed together to create the whole control. In the case of the checkbox here, we have the background element of that control with all of the associated states for each when condition for that checkbox with its own design. And alongside that, we also have the indicator itself as a separate subcomponent of the overall control, with all of the different icons for the different indicator states. These are then combined together into a compositional component where we no longer change the design, but we compose the two subcomponents together, setting the position of the indicator inside the background of the control. Again, with the button, this is then completed by having a final version of this control that we share via the library later, and a runnable template of the design itself. So here we can see that template in use, and we can use that to test our design, test our controls, and when we export that into Design Studio, we'll also be able to test that same file, the same design exactly, in Design Studio to make sure that everything matches up again with our design. This is the list of the currently available controls in this project. We've already seen the button and the checkbox, and here we have a switch, which again uses this multiple subcomponent method to separate the background and the handle, and another component where this is composed together before we create the final control that we share via the Figma libraries. With all the different states required baked into the template already that we know about, that have when conditions associated with it in Design Studio. And again, a runnable prototype. And here you can see that the Figma prototype, in this case, contains nearly all the logic required in order to have a fully working version of that switch. This isn't the case, for example, with the slider, which again has many components stacked together to create a working slider. You need a background, a track, and a handle inside a slider, but the prototype here does not actually slide. So in this case, the Figma prototype can only show you the visual states of the control, but it can't actually simulate the logic that we are able to in Qt Design Studio. But if we look at that in the live preview of Qt Design Studio, we can now see that it is a working slider that can be interacted with already straight away from your import. The dial requires some more work. This is one of the newest control templates that we have made for this project, and the only reason it works at all is because we can now export Figma arcs as a QML arc item. This is a relatively new feature that's come into Design Studio, and as such the dial template needs a little bit more time before it's really as good as the others. And we can see here with a spin box that we can actually use this approach to build relatively complicated controls. Here in Figma, the logic of a full spin box is somewhat hard to simulate, but at least you get an idea of how the design should look from the Figma prototype itself. But we can see that when we bring this one into Design Studio and run it in the live preview, that we have all of our spin boxes, and also we have all of the functional logic, including the display, directly from our Figma template without having to touch any code in Qt Design Studio at all. The prescribed method to work with these templates is to simply copy the templates provided to a new file of your own, at which point you can publish the design components that you want to use via the library system of Figma itself. So you see here on the left, I'm able to select just the controls that I want to share from these templates, publish them in a library, and that way, when I'm designing the templates, I can work here inside this library file, changing the style of all of the controls. But when I actually want to use these controls in a project, I can simply bring this library into my project, grab only the controls that I need to use, and use those directly in the design. And Figma Bridge can keep track of that, and it can maintain the dependencies, and it can only bring in the actual components that you need in your design file. And we see that here in this Figma design file that we actually have this library. And we can show that this is this library here. And with this library enabled, we have access to all of the components that we have designed in our template, but only the components that we want to use in our design. So we can drag a button or a checkbox or a dial or a slider directly from here into our design, where we can do our screen design with and let Qt Bridge handle all of those library dependencies behind the scenes. So this would only bring in the components that are required, but it would also bring in any subcomponents that are required inside the library itself. So it really is a good way of managing your design systems and bringing in your imports into Design Studio in a really nice, clean way. And finally, we can import those into Qt Design Studio by creating a new project or opening an existing project, depending on what phase of the project you're in. In this case, I'm just going to create an empty project for this import itself. That should be fine. Now inside Design Studio, I can just drag this Qt Bridge metadata archive file created by Figma into the design area of Qt Design Studio to trigger that import process. Now, I haven't actually had to modify any of the settings or messed around with the code, and it's just going to do its thing, basically. It's going to import all of these files that I've created, in this case, the examples of the controls. And because it knows that these are controls, it's going to merge them against the QML templates that we provide for these controls. And what I'll have after the import is finished is just a fully working set of Qt Quick controls directly created from my Figma design. And we can just wait for that import to finish. And when it's finished writing the QML, we can load up that demo file. And there it's done. Okay, so let's jump to that demo file. And here we can see we have all of our controls, and they are fully functioning Qt Quick controls. So they have all of the properties required of a normal quick control, something like checked or checkable or exclusive or enabled for buttons and checkboxes and sliders. So you can really use these in production projects as a fully functioning control system. And they have all of the design that you created in Figma. And this will either be as QML property changes or as image-based state visibility changes, depending on how you've set your design up in Figma itself. But we can test that by just running it in the live preview, and we see that we have fully functioning controls directly from our Figma file without having to touch any code at all. Okay, so thank you very much. I hope you found that interesting, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions that you have now.